you're younger, you want to be right about everything. Don't paint that color wall. And Amal and I, famous. Everybody gets ticked off when I say it, but we've never had a fight. We've never had an argument. And some of it is because I'm at this point in life where if she wants to paint the wall red, I don't care. You get to a point in life where you just go, well, why would that be a discussion?
Brad Pitt has broken 25 years of silence about his best friend's marriage, and what he reportedly said changes the way you have to look at everything George Clooney has ever told you. This is not a rumor from a publicist. This is not a blind item. This is the guy who let himself into George's house without knocking during the worst parts of his own divorce. According to the account that has surfaced, the hidden crack in George and Amal's marriage is not about scheduling conflicts or a broken retirement promise. It is about Julia Roberts. It is about a conversation at Lake Como where George reportedly said, "There are some connections that never disappear, no matter how deeply you try to bury them." And Ocean's 14 is coming in 9 to 10 months, which means George and Julia are about to be locked together on a set while his wife watches from somewhere off camera. George has spent years telling anyone who will listen that he and Amal have never had an argument. But his best friend allegedly describes a man who is afraid, uncertain, and carrying something he cannot admit. Those two versions of George Clooney cannot both be the whole truth.
I just always looked at you from afar and said, this guy is always going to be a bachelor. There's no way. It's not that he's not a loving man. It's not that he, but it's just his life is so busy.
But he had said he would never get married again.
I did say that.
You did. Yeah. That Amal, what is the love story there?
It's a great story, actually. I was in Lake Como, single, and a friend of mine said, is it okay if I bring my friend over? I'm on my way to the Cannes Film Festival. Can I bring my friend over? And my mom and dad were staying with me in Como at the time, and a couple of other friends. And I was like, sure, bring.
Wait, let us sit with that for a second. The person delivering this information is not some random insider hiding behind a pseudonym. Brad Pitt and George Clooney met on the set of Ocean's 11 more than 2 decades ago. They have pranked each other across continents. Brad plastered fake posters of George all over Rome just to mess with him. George sent a funeral wreath when he thought Brad's looks had faded. When Brad went through his own public divorce, George was the one who showed up without calling first. When George panicked about becoming a father at 56, Brad sent an adult diaper as a joke and told him to get ready. These are not casual industry acquaintances. They have seen each other fail, embarrass themselves, and start over. So, when a source presented as Brad Pitt says he watched George's expression change at the mere mention of Julia Roberts' name, you have to ask yourself why anyone would invent that specific detail about someone they have protected for 25 years. Now look at what George has said out loud, on the record, in interviews that are very easy to find. He told CBS Sunday Morning that he and Amal have never had an argument. Not one. He said marrying at 52 changed everything because he stopped needing to win. He said Amal is the most extraordinary human he has ever met. None of that has to be false for the other story to also be true. That is the uncomfortable part. A man can genuinely adore his wife and still carry a quiet, unresolved thing for someone else. A man can mean it when he says he is lucky and still feel the pull of a connection that never got resolved. The question is not whether George loves Amal. The question is whether he has been honest with her about whatever has been sitting in the space between his public confidence and his private silence.
As we sit here today, it's your 8th wedding anniversary.
Yes.
And George, people said, George Clooney's, at the time, Amal, George Clooney's getting married?
Yeah. Come on, man.
Getting married?
8 years.
The first visible crack in the fairy tale did not come from a leaked email or a dramatic confrontation. It came from an empty seat. March 12, 2025. George's Broadway premiere. The kind of night where a spouse shows up unless something is wrong. Amal was not there. George gave the explanation that everyone uses when they do not want to say the real reason: childcare. And look, childcare is real. Their twins were 7 years old, but here is the thing about that excuse. It only holds until the couple steps out together looking perfectly happy, which is exactly what happened at the Tony Awards in June, and then again at a double date with Bono at the Polo Bar. So which one is the real signal, the absence or the appearance? If everything is fine, the absence is nothing. But if something has been off for a while, that absence starts to look like the first time the performance slipped and nobody caught it fast enough. And this is where the timing gets genuinely ugly. According to an anonymous source quoted by the National Enquirer, George had been promising Amal for years that he was almost ready to slow down. Step back. Focus on the family. She relocated with the twins to New York so he could do this Broadway run. She uprooted her own life because he promised it was going to be his swan song. Then the play wrapped, and instead of retiring, George started filling his calendar. The source says he totally went back on his word. The biggest piece of that broken promise is Ocean's 14. Budget approved, cast confirmed. Julia Roberts, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Don Cheadle all returning. George told E! News himself that shooting would start in about 9 or 10 months. That is not a rumor. That is a date. That is a ticking clock sitting right on top of this marriage. So let us stack what we have so far. George says he never argues with Amal. Brad reportedly says George has feelings for Julia that he has never fully acknowledged. Amal missed the Broadway premiere. George announced a film that forces him into close physical proximity with Julia for months. According to insiders, Amal has drawn a hard line. Not about the film specifically, about what comes next. The same sources say she has told George that he is risking everything, not his reputation, the actual structure of their family. Now, we have to be careful here. Anonymous tabloid sources make things up all the time, but the pattern is what matters. You do not get this many people whispering the same shape of a story unless something is actually happening behind the scenes.
Known as a confirmed bachelor. But
Yes.
you met Amal Clooney, and what happened to you, George?
I was no longer confirmed. It was easy. It was the minute she walked in the door, I was just, taken by her. And the fun part was, I didn't know whether, she would like me or any of those things. And then,
Wait, George, stop it.
and then we
You
went.
didn't know if Amal would like you.
Now factor in what George has already admitted about his own behavior. After the Tony Awards in June 2025, he told Esquire that he got what he called dumb drunk. He said he caught up for 6 months of abstinence in one night and was sick all the next day. He told it like a funny story, a 50-something father of 2 who forgot his limits. But anonymous sources have since claimed that Amal was not laughing, that she saw it as a slippery slope back into habits he had supposedly left behind. That she drew a firm line and warned him that if he fell back into those patterns, he would be risking everything. Here is the thing about that claim. It could be complete fabrication. Tabloids manufacture this stuff constantly, but George himself handed them the raw material. He admitted the behavior. He made the joke. All an anonymous source had to do was supply the reaction. And the fact that the reaction sounds plausible is not evidence, but it is also not nothing. Which brings us back to Brad Pitt. Brad is not an anonymous source. His name is attached to this story, even if the original account reads like a dramatized transcript rather than a hard news interview. What makes his alleged testimony so uncomfortable is not just the claim that George has feelings for Julia. It is the way Brad describes watching his friend change over the years, the way George's voice would lower whenever Julia was mentioned, the unfinished sentences, the long silences after looking at old photos. The evening on a balcony in New York when George said some people make you feel like you do not have to perform anymore, Brad asked if he meant Julia. George froze, just for a split second. Then he smiled and dodged the question. But according to the account, Brad already knew the answer. And George knew that Brad knew. That is the kind of detail that is very hard to invent if you have never been inside a friendship like that. And here is where the story gets stranger. The Clooney children call Julia Roberts Guju. That is not from a tabloid. That has been reported across multiple outlets. She is close enough to the family that she walks barefoot around their Lake Como home. Amal has treated her like a sister. So the threat is not an affair. The threat is that George has been carrying something quietly for years, while the woman he reportedly has feelings for is welcomed into his home, loved by his wife, and given a nickname by his children. That is not a scandal you can resolve with a denial. That is a slow, quiet erosion of trust that nobody even notices until it is too late. The only person who allegedly saw it clearly was the one friend who had known George long enough to recognize the difference between his performance and his real self.
And then, she's this extraordinarily, fun, smart, beautiful, great woman. And, I was just very taken with her. And I started writing her letters.
What did you, like what? What did you say?
Actually,
what did he say, Amal, in the letter?
The letters, some of them came from his dog, and it was sort of the.
Figure, who's going to be mad at a dog?
So where does that leave Amal? She is not a passive figure in any of this. She has her own career, her own reputation. her own money. She does not need George Clooney for survival, but she does have to decide what she is willing to tolerate. The Broadway absence already happened. The Ocean's 14 shoot is coming. The question that nobody can answer yet is whether she will show up on set. Whether she will sit in a trailer and watch her husband exchange unconscious touches on the shoulder with a woman his children call Guju. Or whether she will quietly walk away before the cameras even start rolling. Insiders say the line has been drawn, but nobody knows if George has already crossed it. And that is the only question that actually matters right now. Let us pull back and look at the machinery underneath all of this, because the story is not really about one conversation or one set of feelings anymore. It is about what happens when a man who built his entire public identity on being the exception to every Hollywood rule suddenly finds himself trapped by his own choices. George Clooney spent years telling everyone that he was different, that he did not argue with his wife, that marrying late made him wiser, that he had nothing to hide. And now, piece by piece, that whole structure is showing stress fractures. The question is not whether the cracks exist, it is how long the walls can stay up before something gives.
Then I think we were together from that moment on. And I mean, it was really interesting because we had to hide for, I don't know, a couple of months because you just want to make sure, you
Right.
you want to get to know each other and get to spend time with each other and not do it, on the front page of Hello Magazine.
Here is the part that does not get talked about enough. The Ocean's 14 announcement did not come out of nowhere. George knew exactly what he was doing when he told E! News that the budget was approved and that Julia Roberts was confirmed in the cast. He could have waited. He could have let the marriage rumors settle. He could have let the Broadway run fade from the news cycle. Instead, he set a date for his own marriage, 9 to 10 months. That is not a man who is worried about his wife leaving him. That is a man who either believes she will tolerate anything or who has already accepted that she will not and does not care anymore. Neither option is a good look for someone who claims to have never had an argument. And the money, because we have to talk about what a split would actually cost. Radar Online threw out the $500 million figure, and sure, tabloids inflate everything, but even half of that would be staggering. The house on Lake Como, the penthouse in New York, the estate in England, the tequila money, the production company, the foundation they run together. Untangling a decade of joint finances when both parties have their own fortunes is not a quick process. It is a war of attrition. And if anonymous sources are correct that Amal has drawn a line, she is not the type to draw one and then walk away quietly. She is a human rights lawyer who has faced down governments. She knows how to build a case. Think about what has not happened yet. George has not denied the Brad Pitt account. He has not said the words that would shut this down. He has given interviews about his hair color, about his wife being happy he went back to gray, about feeling lucky. But he has not looked into a camera and said there is nothing between him and Julia Roberts. He has not said that Brad Pitt never made those claims. In a world where publicists deny everything within hours, that silence is a choice. And the longer he stays quiet, the more people assume he cannot deny it because it is true.
The truth is, I met this incredible woman. Amal is the most extraordinary human I've ever met. She's brilliant and stands for things that matter. She stands up for things that matter. She is a force for good, and she's also beautiful and funny and has the greatest sense of humor and is the most extraordinary mother. So I cannot tell you how lucky I feel every day.
And let us talk about Brad for a second, because whatever happened between them, the friendship is already different. If Brad actually said those things, he made a choice to break a confidence that most people would take to the grave. If he did not say them, someone used his name to sell a story, and he has not fought back either. Either way, the trust is gone. You do not recover from this. The weekly phone calls, the inside jokes, the quiet support during divorces and breakdowns, all of it now sits under a cloud, and George knows it. That is why he keeps talking about everything except the one thing that matters. Question of what Amal has already signaled. She missed the Broadway premiere. That was a choice. She showed up at the Tony Awards and the double date with Bono. Those were also choices. Together, they tell you nothing definitive, but they tell you that she is watching her step. She is not rushing to defend him in interviews. She is not sitting beside him for every red carpet. She is appearing just enough to keep people guessing. That is not the behavior of a woman who feels secure. That is the behavior of someone keeping her options open and letting the public draw its own conclusions. And the drinking admission. People keep treating that as a throwaway joke, but it is not. George told Esquire that he got what he called dumb drunk after the Tony Awards. He said he caught up for 6 months of abstinence in one night. That is not a denial. That is a confession dressed up as humor. Anonymous sources then claimed that Amal drew a line and warned him he was risking everything. Maybe those sources are lying, but George gave them the rope. He admitted the behavior. He made the joke. All someone had to do was add the consequence. And the fact that the consequence sounds exactly like something Amal would say makes it stick. Now stack all of this next to what George has always claimed about his marriage. He told CBS Sunday Morning that he and Amal never argue, that he is less reactive because he married late, that he does not need to win. But winning is not the same as surviving. You can avoid arguments and still drift apart. You can be polite and still carry feelings for someone else. You can say you are lucky and still be lonely. The absence of fighting is not proof of intimacy. It is just proof that two people have learned to stop pushing each other. Will Amal show up on the set of Ocean's 14? That is the moment everyone will be watching. If she is there, standing behind the cameras while George and Julia run their scenes, that is one message. It says she is tolerating the proximity. It says she trusts him. Or it says she is willing to perform trust for the cameras. If she is not there, if she stays in London or New York while the production rolls, that is a different message. It says she has drawn a line and means it. It says she is not going to sit and watch. And here is what makes this so uncomfortable. Neither outcome resolves anything. If she shows up, people will watch her face for signs of strain. They will analyze every glance, every moment she is not looking at George, every time she stands slightly apart. If she stays away, people will assume the marriage is already over and she is just waiting for the right moment to file. Either way, the story does not end. It just produces more material, more speculation, more pressure. What would you do if you were her? Would you fly to wherever they are shooting and sit in a trailer while your husband works with a woman he reportedly cannot bury his feelings for? Would you trust that the friendship is really just friendship after hearing what his best friend allegedly said? Or would you quietly hire the best team money can buy and walk away before the first day of filming, taking $500 million and leaving the tabloids to fight over the wreckage? There is no right answer, just a choice, and nobody knows which one she is going to make. Drop your thoughts in the comments. We will keep watching this one.